Have you ever heard of the second sunrise? It's not something you'll find in a scientific journal, but in many spiritual traditions, people speak of a moment later in life when the world seems to light up in a new way, a kind of awakening not of the body, but of the soul. Some call it wisdom, others call it clarity. I call it freedom. That second sunrise happened for me shortly after I turned 70. It wasn't marked by fireworks or a sudden bolt of inspiration. Instead, it came quietly, in the early morning silence of an ordinary Tuesday. I was sipping tea by the window when I truly realized, that I no longer wanted to spend the rest of my life holding on to things that no longer served me. Not physical things, but beliefs, habits, pressures, invisible weights that had slowly dimmed the light in my eyes. It hit me like a warm, slow wave. I still have time, but what I do with that time is entirely up to me. So let me ask you something. What if the key to living your most joyful, peaceful, and meaningful years isn't about adding more to your life, but letting go? Not many people talk about this. We spend so much of our earlier years accumulating possessions, titles, roles, responsibilities, even opinions. And somewhere along the way, we begin to think that letting go means giving up. But what if it's the opposite? What if letting go is the ultimate act of reclaiming yourself? Let me be clear, getting older isn't always easy. It comes with aches, changes, and yes, some loss. But it also comes with something powerful, perspective. We begin to see that much of what we stressed over, worried about, and sacrificed for wasn't actually as important as we once thought. And that realization, that's where the magic begins. Today, I want to take you on a journey, a personal one, through 11 powerful things I chose to let go of after turning 70. These weren't things I planned to release all at once. They came to me in waves, through reflection, through pain, through small moments of clarity. And every time I released one of these burdens, my life opened up a little more. Like a window cracked just enough to let in fresh air after a long, stuffy winter. Now, before we dive in, I want to say something especially to those of you who are just arriving at this chapter in life. You are not alone. Whether you're 60, 70, 80, or beyond, you're standing at the edge of something deeply beautiful, the chance to live the rest of your life on your own terms. But I also know how hard that can be, because even now, even at this age, we still feel pressure to be strong, to stay silent, to play the role we've always played. Sometimes the hardest person to give permission to is ourselves. So in this video, my goal isn't to tell you what you should do. It's to offer a mirror, one where you might see pieces of your own journey reflected in mine. You'll hear stories, real ones, about moments when I had to choose between comfort and growth, between pleasing others and honoring myself. I'll share how I overcame certain patterns that had ruled me for decades. And I'll show you what I gained in return: peace, purpose, and a kind of lightness I thought was lost to time. This isn't a guide about perfection. It's about authenticity, about choosing what really matters, now that we're old enough to know what that is. And here's something surprising. Letting go doesn't shrink your life, it expands it. It makes room for joy to return, for connection to deepen, and for you to finally become the version of yourself that's been waiting patiently underneath all the expectations. Maybe you've been feeling restless lately. Maybe you've sensed that there's more waiting for you. If only you could release what's weighing you down. If that's the case, then I invite you to stay with me, because you are exactly where you need to be. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore what I let go of, and how each one changed the way I live. Some will surprise you, some may challenge you, and some might feel like the exact nudge you've been waiting for. So, take a deep breath. This is your second sunrise, and it starts now. When I was younger, I used to believe that happiness could be bought. New clothes, fancy gadgets, trendy decorations for the house. Every little purchase felt like a reward. I didn't even realize at the time, but I was chasing a feeling, a quick hit of joy, a sense of comfort, something to distract me from the deeper emptiness I didn't want to face. But as I approached my 70s, that feeling started to shift. I began to look around at all this stuff I had accumulated over the years, and I asked myself a question I had never really stopped to consider before. Why do I own so many things that no longer mean anything to me? That single question unraveled years of unconscious behavior. I'm not alone in this. According to a 2022 report by the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, personal spending on non-essential goods in older adults, 65 plus, grew by nearly 6% annually over the last decade, despite overall income decreasing during retirement. That means that even as people earn less, they're still spending more, often out of habit or emotional impulse. And that's exactly what it was for me. A habit. A deeply ingrained response to stress, boredom, and even loneliness. I was spending not because I needed anything, but because I wanted to feel something. I thought a new purchase would give me joy. But more often than not, what followed was regret. Can you relate to that? Have you ever bought something, only to forget about it a week later? Or opened a drawer and found items you didn't even remember owning? This is what I mean by mindless spending. It's not just about wasting money. It's about missing the opportunity to be truly present with our choices. The truth is, every time we buy something, we're making a statement about what we value. And I have been sending myself the wrong message, that material things could fill emotional gaps. But turning 70 gave me an unexpected gift, clarity. I started to notice what truly made me feel good. It wasn't the new handbag or the fifth pair of walking shoes. It was moments like sitting on a quiet beach, sharing a meal with someone I love, or discovering a new book that opened my mind. That realization led to a conscious decision. I would only spend money in ways that added true value to my life. Not superficial value, not temporary satisfaction, but deep, lasting enrichment. I began practicing what I call intentional spending. Every time I wanted to buy something, I asked myself, do I need this? Will it still matter to me a month from now? Is this solving a problem or masking a feeling? It wasn't about depriving myself. It was about aligning my spending with my values. I still buy things. Of course I do. But now, I choose experiences over possessions. Instead of buying another kitchen gadget I'll never use, I invest in things that feed my soul, like traveling to a small village I've always wanted to visit or taking an online course that challenges my thinking. Interestingly, this shift also brought unexpected benefits. My home feels lighter. My mind feels clearer. I'm not constantly managing or organizing things I don't use. And I've saved more money than I expected. Money I can now put toward things that actually matter to me. Here's something important to understand. There's a link between emotional well-being and financial behavior. Studies from the National Institute on Aging show that older adults who spend more on experiences and social connection report higher levels of life satisfaction than those who focus on material goods. That research aligns with my lived experience. I began finding joy not in things, but in meaning, in conversations, in quiet moments, in simple pleasures like planting something in my garden and watching it grow. Letting go of mindless spending wasn't easy at first. It forced me to sit with uncomfortable emotions, boredom, sadness, loneliness. But facing those feelings head-on allowed me to truly heal them. I no longer had to hide behind purchases. I started celebrating what I already had. Gratitude became my new wealth. So now I want to ask you, what purchases have you made recently that truly brought joy to your life? Are there items in your home that reflect your values, or just your habits? What would happen if, starting today, you chose to spend with intention? Imagine the freedom of walking through a store and realizing you don't need anything. Imagine how light you'd feel if your surroundings only contained things you truly cherished. Imagine the peace of knowing your money is going toward what uplifts you, not what distracts you. That's the kind of life I've stepped into. Letting go of mindless spending was one of the most liberating choices I've ever made. Not because I stopped buying things, but because I finally started valuing myself more than what I owned. And the result? More clarity, more peace, more room for the life I actually want to live. Let's keep going. In the next chapter, I'll share how I released another hidden source of stress, the habit of worrying about things that don't really matter. There's a saying I once heard that stayed with me. Don't let a 5-minute problem ruin your whole day. At the time, I dismissed it as one of those feel-good quotes that sound nice, but don't really stick. But as I entered my 70s, That phrase returned to me like a quiet whisper again and again, until I finally understood just how much power it held. Because for most of my life, I did the opposite. A missed appointment, a burnt piece of toast, a rude driver cutting me off. These tiny moments had an uncanny ability to ruin hours of my day. They would sit in my chest like stones, weighing me down with frustration, tension, and mental noise. I would replay conversations in my head, argue with people who weren't even in the room, and let minor inconveniences spiral into unnecessary emotional storms. If this sounds familiar to you, you're not alone. It turns out this experience has a name: microstress accumulation. According to a 2018 study by the American Psychological Association, these small, frequent stressors, like delays, interruptions, or minor conflicts, build up over time and create more mental strain than major life events. Why? Because we don't process them. We brush them off outwardly, but internally they linger. I didn't realize how much these micro-stresses were affecting my well-being until I found myself snapping over things that really didn't matter. I get irritable in traffic, frustrated when plans changed, or restless when something minor didn't go the way I expected. My nervous system was always on edge, and I didn't even know it. Then came a moment of realization. I was waiting at the pharmacy one day, an ordinary errand. The line was long, and the person ahead of me was arguing with the cashier. My patience wore thin, and I could feel my blood pressure rising. I sighed. I paced. I silently judged. Then I caught myself. What am I actually upset about? The answer: I wasn't in danger. My day wasn't ruined. I just didn't like waiting. That's it. Nothing more. That tiny realization was the turning point. I began to ask myself a very simple question anytime I felt irritation creeping in. Will this still bother me next week? Next year? And almost always the answer was absolutely not. This question became my filter. It helped me decide whether something deserved my energy or not. And over time, I began to feel lighter, more centered, more peaceful. Letting go of small annoyances doesn't mean becoming passive. It means choosing your battles wisely. It's about saving your energy for the things that truly matter: your health, your loved ones, your joy. Here's what I've learned. When you stop reacting to every inconvenience, you make room for calm. And calm isn't just a nice feeling. It's essential to our health. Research from Stanford University shows that chronic low-level stress increases the risk of heart disease, digestive issues, and memory decline, especially in adults over 65. So when we talk about not sweating the small stuff, we're not just talking about attitude, we're talking about longevity. So how we practice this in daily life? I started with a simple habit: the pause. Before reacting to something frustrating, I pause. I breathe. I name what's happening. I'm feeling irritated because I spilled coffee. Then I reframe. Spilled coffee can be cleaned. It's not a crisis. That 30-second pause has saved me from countless hours of unnecessary tension. Another tool I've embraced is choosing grace over control. In life, things will go wrong. Plans will change. People will disappoint us. But we get to decide whether those moments harden us or humble us. Grace means accepting imperfection without letting it steal our peace. Grace means smiling through the delay, forgiving the oversight, and remembering that most things resolve on their own without our emotional investment. Letting go of the little things is not about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming intentional. It's about refusing to carry emotional baggage that doesn't belong to you. And it's about honoring your energy as something sacred. So now, when I find myself frustrated by traffic, I listen to a podcast. When someone is rude to me, I remind myself that their bad day doesn't have to become mine. When something unexpected disrupts my plan, I see it as a detour, not a disaster. Ask yourself, what small thing upset you today? Will it matter next month? Could you let it go right now and make space for something better? Because here's the truth. Peace doesn't come from a life without problems. It comes from choosing how we respond to them. And as I've grown older, that choice has become clearer than ever. Letting go of the little things has helped me rediscover joy in the ordinary. It's helped me laugh more, breathe deeper, and rest easier. It's reminded me that most of the time, The thing that upsets us isn't the situation, it's our attachment to how we think things should be. And once you release that, you gain back your peace. For the majority of my life, I wore the title selfless like it was a badge of honor. I was the one who always showed up, who never said no, who put everyone else's needs before my own. Whether it was staying late at work, saying yes to social invitations I didn't enjoy, or bending over backward to avoid disappointing someone, I convinced myself that this was what it meant to be a good person. But deep down, something didn't feel right. I was exhausted, emotionally depleted, and, if I'm being completely honest, I felt invisible. There's a quiet pain that comes with constantly putting yourself last. You begin to lose touch with who you are. You ignore your own signals, your fatigue, your hunger, your sadness, because someone else always seems to need something more. You begin living your life on other people's terms, all while telling yourself that this is the loving thing to do. It took me nearly 7 decades to realize. True kindness doesn't come at the cost of your own well-being. And even more important, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. This shift in perspective didn't happen overnight. It began slowly, with a moment that may seem trivial to some. One morning, I wanted to sit outside with my coffee and read a book. But as soon as I sat down, the phone rang. A friend needed help. My instinct was to get up immediately, to put down my book, leave my coffee, and rush to help. But then I paused. I asked myself a question I'd never considered before. If I say yes to them, what am I saying no to in myself? It was a powerful moment. I realized I had spent years ignoring my own needs in an effort to be liked, to be needed, to feel valuable. But what it actually created was a version of myself that was overextended, resentful, and frankly worn thin. From that day forward, I made a quiet but profound decision. I would start treating myself like someone I loved. That became my new North Star. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I ask myself what I need, not what others expect from me. Sometimes it's rest. Sometimes it's stillness. Sometimes it's just the freedom to say no without guilt. And here's the truth. When I began making space for my own needs, something remarkable happened. I became more present, more patient, and more genuinely generous because I was no longer giving from an empty cup. There's a concept psychologists call emotional depletion, which occurs when we spend too much time prioritizing others without replenishing ourselves. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Aging and Health found that older adults who practice regular self-care report higher levels of life satisfaction, reduced anxiety, and a stronger sense of identity. I didn't need science to tell me that, though. I felt it. I began carving out small rituals, simple, meaningful moments just for me. A morning walk with no phone, lighting a candle, and sitting in silence for 10 minutes. Writing in a gratitude journal. These weren't grand gestures, but they sent a powerful message to my heart. You matter too. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn was how to set boundaries, especially with people I loved. But what I've come to understand is that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that you open with intention. When you set a boundary, you're not pushing people away. You're inviting them to meet you in a place of mutual respect. It can feel uncomfortable at first. The guilt, the fear of disappointing others. But as you grow into your truth, the discomfort fades and is replaced by peace. Peace that comes from knowing you're no longer betraying yourself to meet someone else's expectations. Ask yourself, how often do you say yes when your heart is begging you to say no? When was the last time you did something just for you, without apology or explanation? What would your life feel like if you honored your needs with the same urgency you honor everyone else's? Imagine waking up and knowing your day won't be hijacked by guilt or obligation. Imagine having the energy to show up fully for others because you've first shown up for yourself. That's the power of self-care. And make no mistake, it's not about bubble baths and spa days, although those are lovely. Real self-care is deeper. It's about choosing rest over resentment, speaking up instead of shrinking down, creating space for your inner life to breathe and bloom. Since I began prioritizing my well-being, I've grown into a version of myself I actually enjoy being around. I laugh more. I breathe easier. I feel whole. Letting go of people-pleasing didn't make me less loving. It made me more honest. And in that honesty, I found a peace I had been missing for far too long. So if you spent your life putting others first, I invite you now to step back into your own life. Take up space. Claim your time. Honor your needs. Because you're not just here to serve others. You are here to thrive. There was a period in my life when my calendar was packed from sunrise to sundown. Meetings, social gatherings, volunteer shifts, family favors, errands I didn't even remember agreeing to. I was constantly running, always saying yes, and rarely stopping to breathe. At the time, I told myself it meant I was productive, helpful, and needed. But inside, I felt overwhelmed, depleted, and strangely disconnected from my own life. I didn't recognize it then, but I was living under the weight of overcommitment. There's a silent pressure in our culture, especially as we grow older, to remain endlessly available. We fear becoming irrelevant or being seen as unhelpful. So we stretch ourselves thin to prove we still have value. But here's what I've come to learn. Being constantly busy isn't a sign of importance. It's often a sign of imbalance. I'll never forget the day I finally faced this truth. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I had committed to attending a community meeting, baking for a friend's birthday, watching my grandkids for a few hours, and helping someone move, all within 48 hours. On the outside, I smiled and reassured everyone, of course, happy to help. But inside, I felt like I was unraveling. That evening, I sat alone in my kitchen, too tired to eat dinner, and something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I realized I had created a life where everyone else's needs were met, except my own. From that moment on, I began practicing something that felt radical at first. I started saying no. It wasn't easy. The first time I turned down a request, I felt guilty. I worried the other person would think I was selfish, lazy, or disinterested. But to my surprise, the world didn't fall apart. And as I said no more often, something wonderful happened. My time became mine again. I started noticing space in my days. Time to read, rest, reflect. Time to reconnect with things I had forgotten I loved. My stress levels dropped. My mood improved. And I discovered something that truly changed my life. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that could restore you. It's not about being unavailable or unkind. It's about becoming more intentional with where your energy goes. Not every request needs your involvement. Not every invitation requires attendance. Sometimes declining is the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for others. In fact, the National Institute on Aging published a study in 2021 showing that seniors who practice time management and boundary setting report significantly higher life satisfaction and lower rates of depression. The takeaway is clear. Protecting your time is not just about convenience. It's about mental and emotional well-being. So how do we shift from overcommit to aligned? It begins with one simple yet powerful habit: pausing before agreeing. Instead of giving an automatic yes, take a breath. Ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Does this align with how I want to spend my time? Will this leave me energized or drained? If the answer is drained, give yourself permission to decline. Another tool I've adopted is the graceful no. It's not abrupt or cold. It's honest and kind. You can say, thank you for thinking of me, but I can't commit right now. That sounds lovely, but I need to rest that day. I'd love to help another time. This week's full. You don't owe an elaborate excuse. A simple, respectful no is enough. At first, people may be surprised. They may even push back. But over time, they will learn, and more importantly, you will learn that your time is not infinite, and it deserves to be treated with care. This shift allowed me to focus on what I truly value: meaningful connections, nourishing routines, quiet creativity, and moments of joy that often go unnoticed in the rush of constant obligation. Ask yourself, how often do you commit to things out of guilt? When was the last time you had an open afternoon with no plans and didn't feel guilty about it? What would your life look like if your schedule reflected your values, not just other people's needs? Imagine waking up and seeing space in your day, not crammed obligations, but time that breathes. Time that's yours. Saying no isn't rejection. It's self-respect. And since I started embracing that truth, my life has felt more balanced, more peaceful, and more meaningful. I'm not doing more. I'm doing less, but I'm doing it with presence and purpose. So if you've been feeling overextended or stretched too thin, this may be your sign. You don't have to say yes to everything. In fact, your most powerful yes often begins with a courageous no. Protect your time. Reclaim your peace. You've earned it. We've covered a lot together in this video. 11 things I chose to leave behind after turning 70. Each one a step toward living with more clarity, peace, and purpose. Not because life was falling apart. Not because I was chasing some perfect version of myself. But because I finally realized that letting go was the only way forward. We talked about the weight of unnecessary spending, the stress that comes from focusing on things that don't matter, the constant need to put others first, and the pressure to say yes when our hearts are begging us to say no. Every one of these habits was draining my time, my energy, and my joy. And if you're anything like me, maybe you've been carrying a few of them too. Here's the truth. Getting older doesn't mean giving up. It means getting clear. Clear about what matters. Clear about who you are. Clear about how you want to spend the time you have left on your terms. There's power in simplicity. There's strength in saying no. Freedom in walking away. Relief in choosing what brings you peace. I didn't share these lessons to tell you how to live. I shared them so you could see what's possible when you finally stop holding on to the things that are holding you back. Because letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And you don't have to wait until life forces change on you. You could decide today to make space for what matters. So here's your next step. Take a moment and think about one thing, just one, that no longer serves you. It might be a habit, a commitment, a belief, or even a relationship. Now ask yourself, what would change if I let this go? Would you feel lighter, more focused, less stressed, happier? Start there. That one choice could lead to 100 small shifts that, together, create a life that actually feels like your own. Because you're not here just to exist. You're here to live fully, honestly, and with intention. And if you found this video helpful, I'd love to know which part spoke to you most. Back-end index pointing right, leave a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you're ready to let go of starting today? Also, don't forget to like this video if it brought you any clarity or peace. It really helps the channel and lets me know that these messages are reaching the right people. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. There's so much more I want to share with you. Practical insights, personal stories, and tools to help you live this chapter of your life with strength and simplicity. Lastly, if you know someone who's going through a similar stage, maybe a parent, a friend, or even a neighbor, share this video with them. You never know how much one story can help someone else feel seen, heard, and supported. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up, for yourself, for your journey, and for the life you still have to live. Letting go doesn't mean starting over. It just means moving forward, lighter, clearer, and more in control of the life you choose to create. The rest is up to you. We'll talk again soon.